The desperate whimpers echoed through the morning mist like a heartbreaking symphony of panic and pain. Little Benny, barely 3 months old, clawed frantically at the clear plastic prison that had become his nightmare. The large peanut butter jar, discarded carelessly by some thoughtless hiker weeks ago, now encased his small black head like a transparent death sentence. Each labored breath fogged the plastic walls, and his tiny paws scraped uselessly against the smooth surface, leaving faint scratches that would never be deep enough to free him. But he wasn't alone. Beside him, his slightly larger brother Bruno paced in tight, anxious circles, refusing to abandon his trapped sibling even as their mother's distant calls grew fainter in the wilderness. This wasn't just a story of survival. It was a testament to the unbreakable bonds of family, played out in one of nature's most heart-wrenching scenarios. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications so you never miss another inspiring story like this. Now, let's dive into this unbelievable tale. The Cascade Mountains of Washington State stretched endlessly around them, their ancient Douglas firs reaching toward a pewter sky that threatened rain. Morning dew clung to every blade of grass in the small meadow where the two cubs had been exploring, turning their playground into a glittering wonderland that had quickly become a nightmare. 20 miles from the nearest town, this remote section of the Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest was supposed to be pristine wilderness. Instead, it bore the ugly scars of human carelessness. Plastic bottles caught in tree branches, candy wrappers fluttering like diseased butterflies, and discarded containers that had become death traps for innocent wildlife. The very jar now imprisoning Benny had probably held someone's trail snacks just weeks before, tossed aside without a second thought about the consequences. The meadow sat in a natural depression between two ridges, creating a bowl that captured both morning light and human debris. A small creek bubbled nearby, its crystal-clear water mocking the plastic prison that prevented Benny from drinking. Ancient bear trails crisscrossed the area, paths worn smooth by generations of the cubs' ancestors who had never had to navigate around humanity's thoughtless litter. Bruno's actions spoke louder than any human words ever could. While most young animals would have fled in fear or confusion, he stationed himself as his brother's guardian and problem solver. With remarkable intelligence for such a young cub, he began systematic attempts to free Benny from his plastic prison. First, Bruno tried brute force, grabbing the jar with his small teeth and pulling backward with all his strength. His paws slipped on the smooth plastic, and Benny's terrified squeals grew louder as the jar twisted painfully around his neck. Realizing this approach was hurting his brother more than helping, he immediately stopped and began circling the trapped cub, studying the situation from every angle. Next, he attempted to push the jar off by bracing his paws against it and shoving upward. The container was wedged too tightly around Benny's head and neck, the opening just small enough to trap him, but too narrow for easy removal. His claws scraped against the plastic, leaving white scratches, but making no meaningful progress. Growing more desperate as the hours passed, Bruno began bringing items to help his brother. He dragged over fallen branches, trying to use them as tools to pry at the jar's edges. When that failed, he collected smooth stones from the creek bank. somehow understanding that he needed to break the plastic barrier. His tiny paws weren't strong enough to throw the rocks with sufficient force, but his determination never wavered. As the day wore on, Bruno's protective instincts intensified. He positioned himself between Benny and any perceived threats, chasing away curious squirrels and growling at distant bird calls. When exhaustion forced Benny to lie down, Bruno curled up beside him, sharing his body heat and offering what comfort he could through gentle nuzzling and soft whimpers of encouragement. If cubs could form complex thoughts, Bruno's mind would have been a whirlwind of confusion, determination, and love. Why couldn't he help his brother? What was this strange, clear thing that trapped Benny's head but let Bruno see through it? Every instinct told him to stay, to keep trying, to never give up on family. Bruno couldn't understand why the thing around his brother's head wouldn't come off like the shells they sometimes found by the creek. Those came apart easily when you knew where to bite them. This was different, smoother, harder, and seemingly impossible to break with small teeth and claws. The young cub's primitive problem-solving abilities were being pushed to their limits. He could see that Benny was getting weaker, breathing harder, moving less. Some deep instinct told him that time was running out, that whatever was happening to his brother was very, very wrong. But that same instinct also told him that leaving wasn't an option. Brothers didn't abandon each other, not even when staying might mean danger for both of them. Fear coursed through Bruno's small body like ice water, but it was fear for his brother, not himself. Every labored breath from Benny sent waves of panic through Bruno's chest. He whimpered softly when Benny's movements grew sluggish, and his own breathing quickened when he realized his brother was getting weaker. Frustration built with each failed attempt to remove the plastic prison. Bruno's small body trembled with the effort of trying solution after solution, only to watch them all fail. The plastic remained intact, unmoved by his desperate attempts. This frustration manifested in small bursts of frantic activity. Sudden rushes of digging, aggressive attacks on nearby sticks, and moments of spinning in tight circles as his young mind struggled to process the impossibility of the situation. But beneath the fear and frustration flowed an unshakable current of love and loyalty. Bruno's actions weren't driven by rational thought, but something deeper, an emotional bond that made leaving impossible. This wasn't a conscious choice to be heroic. It was simply inconceivable to him that he would do anything other than stay and keep trying. As hours passed and Benny's condition worsened, a new emotion emerged in Bruno, a fierce protectiveness that transformed the small cub into a tiny guardian. He became hyper-aware of every sound, every movement in the forest around them. His ears swiveled constantly, monitoring for threats that might take advantage of his brother's vulnerability. Just as the afternoon sun began to slant low through the forest canopy, casting long shadows across the meadow, the sound of human voices carried through the trees. A family of hikers had heard the cub's distressed calls and followed the sound to its source. Sarah, a veterinarian technician from Seattle, took one look at the situation and immediately understood what needed to be done. While her husband called the local wildlife rescue service on their satellite phone, she carefully approached the two cubs, speaking in soft, soothing tones. Bruno initially tried to defend his brother, positioning himself between the humans and Benny while making small woofing sounds that were more plea than threat. But as Sarah gently offered her hand for him to sniff, something in her calm energy seemed to communicate her intentions. After several tense minutes, Bruno stepped aside, as if understanding that these strange creatures might be able to do what he could not. Using a small multi-tool from her backpack, Sarah carefully began working on the jar.
The plastic had warmed and expanded slightly in the sun, making removal possible but requiring infinite patience to avoid injuring Benny's neck. Bruno watched every movement with intense focus, occasionally offering encouraging licks to his brother's exposed fur. After 20 minutes of painstaking work, the jar finally came free with a soft pop. Benny's first full breath of unobstructed air came out as a long, grateful sigh, and Bruno immediately began grooming his brother's matted fur with gentle licks, as if to welcome him back to the world. The wildlife rescue team arrived an hour later, but by then both cubs had recovered enough strength to disappear into the underbrush together, Bruno still hovering protectively near his brother's side. The rescuers followed at a distance until they were satisfied that both cubs were reunited with their mother and moving normally through their forest home. This story of Bruno and Benny isn't just a heartwarming tale of animal devotion. It's a wake-up call about the hidden dangers our carelessness creates in the natural world. Every piece of plastic we leave behind, every container we fail to dispose of properly, becomes a potential death trap for innocent wildlife. But we can change this narrative. Pack out what you pack in. Cut up any containers before disposing of them. Support organizations working to clean up our wilderness areas. Choose reusable containers over disposable ones. These simple actions can prevent countless tragedies like the one that nearly separated Bruno and Benny forever. The love that kept Bruno by his brother's side despite the danger is a reminder that love and loyalty aren't uniquely human traits. Animals form bonds just as strong as ours, and they deserve our protection and respect. When we protect their habitat and remove the hazards we've created, we're not just helping individual animals, we're preserving the intricate relationships and family bonds that make wildlife communities thrive. Share this story with others. Let Bruno's unwavering loyalty inspire us all to be better stewards of the natural world. Because somewhere in the forests, mountains, and meadows around us, other brothers and sisters are counting on us to keep their world safe from the dangers we've inadvertently created. The next time you're tempted to leave that plastic bottle by the trail or toss that container into the bushes, remember Bruno's desperate attempts to save his brother. Remember that our choices echo through the wilderness long after we've gone home, and choose to be part of the solution, not the problem. After all, love, whether between two bear cubs or between humans and the natural world, demands action, not just feelings. Bruno showed us what true devotion looks like. Now it's our turn to show the same dedication to protecting the wild families who share our planet.